The FBI is still illegally spying on American citizens, and Attorney General William Barr needs to put a stop to it from ever happening again. Hello, this is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button. Today we're going to be talking about the FBI, Spygate, the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act, and its implementation on U.S. soil, where apparently, according to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act court, the FBI is not legally engaging in spying on the American people, and they're not complying with the terms of FISA. This is a huge problem. As listeners will recall, the Obama administration was using FISA to spy on the Trump campaign in 2016. It began in October. It was renewed 3 times, and it was on this phony baloney allegation that President Trump was somehow a Russian agent, and so were his campaign. Then you go through a 3-year investigation by the Justice Department into Trump and people in the campaign and people in his administration, only to find out 3 years later, after 2016, by Special Counsel Robert Mueller, that there was no conspiracy by the Trump campaign with Russia. So what made them think that? Why is the FBI engaged in all of this spying too? We're going to take a look at this now. Right now, we're patiently awaiting Inspector General of the Justice Department, Michael Horowitz's report on FISA abuses that occurred in 2016 with these false allegations by intelligence agencies and the Justice Department that Trump was some sort of Russian agent. It was fake, it turns out. And now we know at least that the abuses of FISA by the FBI continued at least through 2018, according to a declassified court document. Judge James Boasberg, this is from the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court, and this was issued on October 18, 2018. So this is from a year ago, but what it documents is Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act implementation by the Justice Department. And according to the opinion from Boasberg, quote, the court finds that the FBI's querying procedures do not comply with the requirement of Section 702 F1B to keep records of U.S. person query terms used to conduct queries of information acquired under Section 702. Also, quote, the court next examines the prevalence of non-compliant queries conducted by FBI personnel to return information about U.S. persons from Section 702 acquired data. It ultimately finds the FBI's querying and minimization procedures as implemented to be inconsistent with statutory minimization requirements and the requirements of the Fourth Amendment. Now, the Fourth Amendment under the Constitution, that's the right against unreasonable searches and seizures. And this was going on, all these abuses, during Special Counsel Robert Mueller's investigation, which turned out to be into a conspiracy theory that Trump was some sort of Russian agent. The FBI was failing to minimize properly the identities of American citizens, apparently, and they made 3.1 million queries, quote, against raw FISA acquired information, including Section 702 acquired information in 2017 alone. So it takes a look at 2018 and 2017. That's when this investigation into Trump was going on. And so now we don't know if this was these 3.1 million queries on FISA-related information, if that was all on the Trump campaign and the Trump administration. But it was certainly during the time of the FISA warrants, which continued. The last one was renewed on Carter Page, former Trump campaign foreign policy advisor, in June of 2017. The surveillance began in October of 2016. That was during the election campaign. So you had the Obama administration, the incumbent party, spying on the opposition party, the Trump campaign, and the Republican Party in an election year. This is East Germany type of stuff. Why? How could this be happening in America? Now, James Comey, he was fired in 2017. So the fact that the abuses continued through 2018, that means that falls under FBI Director Christopher Wray. who replaced Comey after Comey was fired in 2017 for lying to President Trump about the extent of the investigation into him. Comey says, "Oh, we're not investigating you, Mr. President." And that was a lie. They were investigating him from day one, and that was the whole point. They tried to make it appear as though they were investigating other people, other figures in the Trump campaign. But ultimately, the Mueller report exonerates everyone on the question of a Russian conspiracy. Absolutely. The report on Russian interference in the elections, that was completed by Robert Mueller, and we have that report, and we can read from it now. And what it found was, quote, "The investigation did not establish that members of the Trump campaign conspired or coordinated with the Russian government in its election interference activities," and, quote, "The evidence does not establish that the president was involved in an underlying crime related to Russian election interference." And he looked at Michael Cohen, the so-called Steele dossier. This was paid for by the DNC and the Hillary Clinton campaign. It made a bunch of claims that Trump was a bought and paid for Russian agent, that Paul Manafort and Carter Page were a part of the Russian conspiracy to hack the DNC and to put the emails on WikiLeaks. Carter Page was supposed to be some sort of intermediary, Manafort, this mastermind, and that the whole operation had been conducted with the full knowledge and support of the Trump campaign. Michael Cohen was said to have traveled to Prague and the Czech Republic in the summer of 2016 to kind of patch things up, the fallout of the WikiLeaks disclosures. And then when Mueller looks at it in his report, it turns out that Michael Cohen had never been to Prague. So the sources of information that were telling Steele hired whoever he was talking to. I mean, he says he was talking to Kremlin officials, so maybe it was Russian disinformation, but maybe he wasn't in touch with real Russian Kremlin officials at all. Maybe it was all made up, but whoever was telling him that Michael Cohen was in Prague, it was giving them bad information. And so all the other information that the Trump campaign was conspiring with the Russians on the DNC hack and the WikiLeaks disclosures, that similarly could have all been made up. And certainly the Mueller report pretty much gave the Trump campaign a clean bill of health on the question of the Russian conspiracy to interfere with the elections, that there was no coordination, there was no conspiracy with the Trump campaign. So it was a false allegation, and we spent 3 years of the nation's history investigating what amounted to a really false claim, and it involved spying on the opposition party in an election year. This is a major FISA abuse, and now the abuses that are covered by Boasberg in his 2018 decision, they don't tell you if it had to do with the FBI's probe into Trump, but it certainly must factor into Attorney General William Barr's ongoing review of FISA implementation. In 2016, the court granted permission to engage in the surveillance of the Trump campaign. It continues through 2017, and these queries of the FISA database by the FBI, 3.1 million in a year in 2017 alone. Well, that was pre-Mueller and post-Mueller. So it happens in the beginning of 2017 all the way through Mueller being appointed in the middle of 2017 and all the way to the end of the year. So it's really the height of the investigation into Trump. Back when Democrats really believed that Trump might really be guilty of being some sort of foreign agent, some sort of Manchurian candidate. So I think that this is a signal of what we might be seeing from the Horowitz Inspector General report. I think this is signaling that we're going to find out about abuses of FISA by the Obama administration against the Trump campaign in 2016. And I think it was an unbelievable abuse of power. And given the breadth of FBI surveillance during these years, plus the fact that the FISA court says these authorities were being abused at the same time, the question is, when did the agency know that the allegations against the president were false? And when they knew, why didn't they stop the investigation right then and there? Now, William Barr, he doesn't come on until after the 2018 midterm elections, so we don't know how the situation has shifted and changed since then. And I think that's important to keep in mind, that this is from a year ago. And so, yes, the FBI is still illegally spying on the American people, but hopefully, and we're hoping and we're urging that William Barr, the Attorney General, will get a handle on this and fix this. You can't have you can't have the intelligence apparatus getting involved with politics. I think it's unbelievable what happened here. Hillary Clinton campaign and the DNC, they seeded these allegations with Fusion GPS, who hired former British spy Christopher Steele to produce them. And this resulted in the FISA warrant. In October of 2016, the FISA warrant was given on Carter Page. He was a Trump campaign advisor. And that gives the FBI and the DOJ access to campaign emails, text messages, phone calls, and other documents. And for anyone who was in touch with Carter Page and anyone who was in touch with Carter Page's contacts. And so there's a lot of surveillance that's going on there. And there was a lot of information in the query. So when Robert Mueller and special counsel says that the investigation did not establish that the Trump campaign during 2016 was engaged in some sort of conspiracy with Russia, that means it didn't happen, because otherwise the surveillance would have turned it up. You would have had Carter Page talking to Russian officials and getting these emails from the DNC to WikiLeaks or something like that. But if those contacts existed, believe me, that would have been included in the Mueller report, and these people would have been prosecuted. Nobody was prosecuted for conspiring with Russia to interfere in the elections, to hack the DNC, or to put anything on WikiLeaks. All of the crimes that occurred pretty much after the investigation began, they happened because of the investigation, where people misremembered information. They were later brought up on lying to investigator charges, or they happened way before the election. In the case of Paul Manafort and his ties to Ukrainian former President Viktor Yanukovych, and his time as an advisor there in the several years ago, before Yanukovych was overthrown in a coup in 2014. So I think that what happened with this investigation is a real scandal, and it points to severe abuses under FISA. FISA was established to prevent these sorts of abuses, and it was in response to CIA spy operations on the American people, members of Congress, anti-war protesters in the 1960s and the 1970s. Yet the Church Committee, Frank Church, senator, leads the committee, and his findings on the committee, looking at the New York Times reporting on this FCIA operation, the FISA statute was designed to prevent this from ever happening again. Instead, it appears to be enabling the surveillance to continue. They say that these authorities are essential to national security. And if that's true, I think that then we need to have accountability for when those powers are abused, because otherwise the Constitution doesn't mean much if you have a 1984 or East Germany style surveillance operation that can be carried out on political parties and political campaigns, and then bringing them up on erroneous, false allegations that they're foreign agents. I think that's unbelievable. I mean, they were accusing Trump of treason, and it turned out not to be true. I think the American people want to find out what happened here. We better find out what happened here. And so we're counting on Barr to really make this right, because it sounds like we're losing the Constitution, we're losing our country. If these abuses, if they are not overturned and lead to serious punishments for those who perpetrated them, this will undoubtedly happen again, whether abuses occurred under Section 702 of FISA or some other provision of the intelligence apparatus. If these laws are essential to national security, they can never again be allowed to use to destroy a political party and the presidency ever again. This has interfered with our political system far more than anything Russia was accused of. Ultimately now, and I'll leave you with a close here, responsibility for these allegations and these abuses falls at the feet of Christopher Wray. He's the FBI director, and it's up to Attorney General Barr to determine what Wray did to mitigate and correct these abuses when they were occurring, when they found out that the allegations against President Trump were not true. Why didn't they stop the investigation? Why did we have to wait till the William Barr comes in to say and the special counsel report concluding? Why didn't Mueller stop it when they knew that there was no collusion or no conspiracy with Russia? They should have come to the American people immediately and said, this was based on false allegations, and I am referring this matter to the Inspector General of the Justice Department. Now, ultimately, the Inspector General is looking at these FISA abuses, but it looks like fruit from the poison tree to me. Because if Wray knew that this was false and phony and didn't tell the American people for months, and didn't have Rod Rosenstein come forward and say that this was false and fictitious, these allegations against the president, I think that's a dereliction of duty. They led people on, and so maybe we'll need a new FBI director. I mean, it reminds me of Die Hard. We're going to need some more FBI guys.
We're going to need some more FBI guys, I guess.
And that's the commentary. This is Robert Romano, Vice President of Public Policy with Americans for Limited Government, dailytorch.com. Hit that subscribe button, ring the bell for notifications, and have a good day.